it's the presentation of the Palaver. We are very happy to welcome Professor Gay, who is a professor at East Carolina University. We will be moderating some of the presentation. Dr. John Barry is now Dr. Salva Sam and Dr. Suleiman. It's a rare pleasure as a work and this second session. We will be totally discussed by human analysis. And the topics mentioned will be violent extremism in topic justice by Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie. The second topic will be to be shut off silence, trauma, and identity formation. And the third one, the conflict between freedom and oppression. So this is how we will be thank you for coming. And that's good. I think it will be great. We will be learning a lot from these great scholars. Thank you very much.
Well, I just one word for me. You know why? Because all of that people around here sitting at the table at the now, if I had a cheap to stand here or to sit there and comment, you know, what report I would be receiving from one of them. You told us, now we teach. You were that doctor, now we are all doctors, so please vacate.
No. That's a blessing. That's a blessing.
Yeah, I don't think Abdullah would say that. I'm not sure that somebody would be. God would not, you know, would be discussing something else, but he would never tell. But that is the lady who is sitting on the extreme race. Who suddenly want to do that? Because I remember we sat here, maybe it was 2 years ago, and we were like discussing. It was a general discussion. But I really got a review from her telling me, look, I am a professor now. No, really, a pleasure and an honor to have you both. This is the life reward. When Father was telling me the other day, well, you know what happened? I finished my class, and my student stood up laughing. That because they were sitting very satisfied. And she said, Prof, it reminds me of the days when we were your student and you were giving this class in African literature. So, merci beaucoup. Parce que ça, c'est on dirait que dans le ciel. Je ne sais pas si l'enseignement va donner et continuer à me donner. Mais entrer dans un appliqué, quelqu'un qui aime prendre vos bagages en vous disant, j'ai un siège pour vous. Allez dans une voiture, on vous dit non, tu sais, il y a un salon là-bas où vous devez. On vous fait tout et vous studiez, on vous donne. Mais ça, et vous là, et là. That's all right. My only question is, I hope while I was teaching, you did not feel improperly treated by my company. You did? No, really, I mean, it's a pleasure, and one is very honored and grateful to have you come and Shiomanda. I did not continue to this particular writer, or like so maybe I'm welcome. And the audience, I am sure you'll be having a fine conversation on the production of Ngozi Adichie. How can organizing that? Yeah, I talk like the end because she drags on so many things. Some of the things is earlier, but this one also is a big one. So, chairmanship of Palaver, I'm going to have this conversation on African.
Everybody knew who he's talking about because his Gabon it was not really good. But I own it. I own the fact that we are the students of a great teacher, and now we're teachers. So in our own rights, let us teach and let us see the world in our own ways and our own eyes too. There's a big gap between what you were teaching us, and the reason why I fell in love with literature, especially African literature, which was The River Between by Gugi Bachongo, an ancient book. Not to say that you were ancient, but because we also are no longer young. But so there's a big gap between The River Between and Purple Hibiscus, but at the same time, there are so many parallels because it is still post-colonial literature that talks about the African experience from an African author using African characters in an African context, which I think is very important to emphasize. This is Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie's first book, which was published in 2003, and is what we would call a Kaminos age story because it is told from the perspective of Kambili, a 13-year-old or 17-year-old Nigerian girl, 16-year-old Nigerian girl, who is trapped in the tribulation of her father and dreams of freedom as epitomized by her auntie Ife. So we go back from Lagos to Suka, to all of these places, and this is the book that literally grounded Adichie into the tradition of post-colonial writing, especially with the beginning, things started to fall apart when Dada refused to. So there she echoed Achebe, a giant of African literature. So today it is very, very, very a big honor for me to be sitting here and moderating this panel. I've taught this book since it started. I remember Chimamanda Adichie was invited at Basel when she published that book when I was there in 2005, and we paid her $400 to come speak to us. Now she's worth $30,000. So this book really is very important in her writing. It is very important in African literature. It is also very important in world literature because it is one of the first books that does not victimize Africans, that tells the story of regular Africans that we could see that is different from Africans swinging from trees and dating lions. So it is my great pleasure to have Dr. Don Fai on my left, Dr. Dr. Sal, and then Dr. Suleiman Dao, who will be each taking 10 to 15 minutes to talk about this book. So the first one is going to be Violent Extremism in Purple Hibiscus by Dr. Sai, who is also my colleague at the University of Dakar and who writes hosted by them. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Gay, and thank you, Professor Sam. As we say in Wolof, saying like Jangal Panogo Page. Okay,
Said by a
because whenever I see you, I have in mind your pedagogical skill, especially when teaching African American community with very pedagogical skill, especially long-distance life. Not only and Esther. And I remember the first you gave us in Wiscon's. Now we and Esther, Black Brothers and Social Standards. That was about it. Black Brothers, but Social Standards. That was about it. And I got it in mind. So thank you for that. And thank you also for the match. try to move the data. Because whenever we are here, we are doing that. So, it is sort of a thing for we language teachers and the students also in trying to you present your book, yeah, and we'll give you the information. Yeah. So, thank you, the initiator of this, get together, the startup and the organization skills, and all my colleagues, so professionals, now, why do I say professional? I mention it. Yeah, okay. So, the topic violent extremism is through the books, Total Kings by Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie, and it is a topic of nation, especially if we look around what's happening in West Africa, in Mali, in Burkina Faso, everywhere, we are witnessing a situation that is that needs to be addressed because a violent extremism most of the time is based on some reasons that are shared by the majority of the population. Why do we reach that level of the state of mind to be violent in the experience? And Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie dealt with that issue with some symbols of extremism as part of giving the father of the family composed of Beatrice Oman, Jaja, and Kambindi, she's the daughter. So, but we need to have an overview of violent extremism. Because violent extremism is not physical only, but it can be with actions, mental, or having consequences on the issue of trauma. So it is the belief and action of people who support the use of violence to achieve ideological, religious, and political goals. And this is something we can include what we call terrorism and other forms of politically motivated and communal violence. So when a person's belief move from being relatively conventional to being radical, and they want drastic change in society, you know, those who are using violence, they are social change seekers. They are trying to change the society, but they don't have any other arguments, and they resort to violence. This is known as radicalization, and this is a bad thing, and doesn't mean these people will become violent. However, if a person decides that fear, terror, and violence are justified to achieve ideological, political, and social change, and then acts according, this is what we call violent extremism. So if we take the character Eugene, I see he's a change seeker through fear and intimidation. The motivation of Eugene is religious. When his son Jaya refused to go to community on Palm Sunday, Eugene, as a devout Catholic, throw him aside in anger, breaking the ceramic front on the etagere. And if you go to the soul, Kambili, which is the daughter, tell the stories of Papa beating Mama in the womb, simply because she misses her usual Sunday routines for not creating family communication and not urging Jaya to go and read his book. So this radical education that you want to implement in this house is the kind of prison or oppression or oppressive environment in which he is upbringing his children. And Kambili in the narrative says on two occasions
the beating leads to the miscarriages of civil life. So these are violent experiences that is shown in the book based on the religious beliefs of Eugene, who is a devoted Catholic, and his understanding of the religion is the basis of his use of violence. So in taking, also you see, taking 30 minutes to pray over food, you see, this is religious extremism. And you see, if you want to do that, we will do that. You bring rice and fish, or you bring the halpula, rice and fish, what they love, and you ask them to wait for 20 minutes, praying over the food. They're going to jump on the plates because they could not wait for that. But these are how Eugene is zealous in his faith, in his Christian faith. And this is the main cause of violence that we witness in West Africa. Eugene even burns his children too. In fact, was as the person measurement succeeding before he even died. So Eugene neglects his father because he refuses to throw away his personal God and be converted to the Christian faith. You see, right at the beginning, I was thanking Professor Sen for what he did for us. But imagine a father who is your father, with all the difficulties to raise children. You send to school, you succeeded in your life. Because your father is not in your faith, you neglect your father, even refusing your father to set foot in your house because he is in the faith kingdom, because you don't share the same faith, because he is a man of power, he's the doomsday is going to be out. You see how it was traumatizing other father. He hates even his father, seeing him as even a leper. Eugene will not let his father go to his house. Will not even leave his father because they don't share the same Christian faith. So this is violence on the father coming from the daughter because we do not share the same religion. The son. And you see, even it is narrated by Auntie Theodore, who is open-minded, saying, Eluku, stop, turn to look back toward our house. Look at me. My son owned that house that fit in every man in Abba, and many times I have nothing to put in my plate. A wealthy man in a city doing what we call in Wolof Samba Alat, meaning you helping other people outside, but your father is suffering, even having nothing to put in his plate. So Abdullah, you can use the wall of poverty. I should not have let him follow those missionaries. This was depict neglect, pain, suffering, poverty, bitterness, and neglect. So, we're going to see youth and violent extremism as a colonial product. How colonialism impacted on violent extremism in West Africa through the symbol of youth. And even Adichie in the book said, the way we are is very much the result of colonialism. Because Eugene as a faithful disciple of Father Benedict is the product of the teaching of his master. So union is the product of the teachings of Father Benedict. Because union refuses even to speak the Igbo language. So his children is the outcome of Father Benedict's agenda, which aims at depriving his disciples of their language. And you see the first element, that is the vehicle of culture in your language. And we say the mother tongue. So the fact of Father Benedict refusing to pray in Igbo using Latin only is the first element of this violent extremism that you don't. He insisted that the privilege will be reciting only in Latin. Igbo was not acceptable. So this is something that we need to dwell on to see how colonialism impacted in African cultures, in African way of life, in African civilization, and the outcome is the misinterpretations that is today the source of violent experience all around West Africa and Africa. When Mama had greeted the traditional way that women were supposed to, meaning when you greet those who are older than you, you bend low and offer your back. You don't tell her that it was sinful. You see how, what we say in French, former Persian Ekari, the limitation of his word, seeing the way of greeting of Mama as something sinful. You did not bow to another human being, it was ungodly practice. So this also is reflected even in the naming, English names. Because in the book, there are sacred names. Names, if you bear these names, you're going to be good Christians. And names which are ungodly names. Your name is what we got here in our country, to check. Meaning, your name is not called. You need to change your name. So linking names and faith. And you see the hot debate. Hot debate. It is something real that if you bear the name of Joseph or Peter, you more Christian than Lord or Wali. So and all this is the product of colonialism. That's why union is seen as the product of colonialism. But I was happy when I heard Dr. Dave talking about written by Louis John. Because many of the readers, they see Adichie as a student of Achebe. But I think if you read the little written by Louis John, you're going to see the converging points between the two writers. Meaning at the end, they see that things are falling apart, mais les choses sont récupérables. Comment récupérable? We can prove the opposite, an opposite character. And the opposite character here is anti-Jehovah, which is the messenger of Shimamadan was Adichie to give his last message to the world. And in that perspective, was Adichie shared the view of Nubi, but the share of the view of Senghor also, meaning Lama Simadabo and Nubi. You see Anti-Ikeoma, who is a Christian, but rooted also in the tradition, accepting. So when Anti-Ikeoma say that you don't have to stop doing God's job, you are not God. You do. To say we're going to paradise, we're going to heaven. To go to paradise or to go to hell, it is doing God's hand. Stop doing God's job. When he said that God is big enough to do his own job, God is big enough to do his own job. It's not up to you to do God's job. So if God will judge our father for doing to follow the way of our ancestors, then let God do the judging, not you, Richard. So this is who anti-Kipewoma Ngozi sends out of message of tolerance. Moderation in faith. So on that moderation in faith and the right balance in the exercise of the faith. Anti-Kipewoma is a Christian who speaks the Igbo language and with an Igbo accent. Igbo accent is identity, and Professor said, and those who move. You go to Europe, you go to France, you meet people who are speaking French, the same language, but with different accents depending on where they are from. You can speak English with a Gambian accent. You can speak English with a Nigerian accent. You can speak English with another accent. But if you think you're imitating British people the way they are speaking, it is because he was experienced in his interpretation of things. So she speaks English too and give due respect to the traditional thing. So like locals that are working with you and other African writers also, Ngozi advocates rootedness and openness. To be rooted in your country, to speak your language, to speak your accent, to tolerate also the traditional beliefs, but to be open to the light that may come from any other part in this world. Mother Africa, the father of humanity, must welcome the positive contributions of all civilizations. This is at the end what was advocates to welcome the positive contribution of all civilizations through the character of anti-war, while remaining rooted in the value that made the soul of Africa. And time without thanking you for your attention, please.
The look, it's up right there. Thank you so much for being in sync with my eyes. Thank you. That was great. That was fascinating. And next we have Dr. Sal, who will be talking about to be shut off, silence, trauma, and identity formation in public institutions. Thank you, everybody. And thank you.
Yes, that's it. We should be talking. Yes.
Right. Thank you, everybody. I would like to thank Professor Fan for leading us, all of us, and also personally, I am part of the work family here as working in the study work for the so that thank you for our experience in the trip. And thank you, Professor Ted, also for training us in taking the space and sharing our voices. Thank you to the library. Thank you, Library, for creating this space for us to reflect on so today, I'm really happy that I'm because my presentation focuses on the families representation of issues of silence and how she brings out the negative. She's So literature should be the way of societies with, like America so far says when I write for Maria Mava worked as solo and which shows that collective and individual violence in its different forms. When you think about violence, but when you think about violence, it's emotional violence, verbal, financial, right? There are so many different types of violence that, especially in patriarchal society. So Audre Lorde says there are many kinds of power, used and abused, acknowledged and otherwise. We'll see in the book through Emily's account of it about just little things about it, what they do every day, where they go, when they live, focusing really on the detail description, show us the different types of violence. Storytelling is used by Chimamanda in a very, very vital way. She uses it to connect it and define it. She presents us, old ways of telling stories, from like oral to written. She captures the African reality, and storytelling in this book, Trauma, Silence, and Identity, is a form of it. We see that from the beginning to the end. That we always have a first scene that's extremely violent, but the way that family describes it to me, it tells so many things, right? It talks about the fact that Father Eugene is seen from outside as the best person that he represents perfection. He is the boss of the newspaper. He works, he produces so many things. Outside, people give him a lot of gifts. People recognize him as the perfect human being. But in the inside, you see the opposite. And what I really appreciate about the way that Chimamanda shows us the reality of his family and the degree of trauma in which they go through every single day. I think she just does it so. She focuses on the first day when Jaja, and then in front of this, this is what she said. He said, the word gives me father. And the priest keeps touching my mouth and it nauseates me. When I chose the title, I was really thinking about the representation of power in being shut up and being given space, right? Being given a voice. It seems like from the first page of the book, we have Jaja, this young boy, speaking, saying that, critiquing religion because he says that the water is in Catholic. He said that the priest is touching his body. So basically, he understands that his body is his private ownership, that nobody else should be that close to him, and then just using religion to put that violence. And then Father said, well, it keeps you from dying, like he said. And it reminded me of the traumatic experience that the slaves go through when they are taken from their lands, brought to a different land. Before even being there, what happened is that they are separated from children, from this people. When you leave, everything that you identify is taken from you. And you are asked to be shut off, so that you to the shut, the father who cannot speak your language, you don't identify with anybody else, you don't even know to start, right? So that experience of trauma is recounted into Nigeria while the country is going through how do you say it? Turmoil, a community, negative experience with the military group. At the same time, we have the personal one that's happening in the house. So when it's in this private space that the violence is happening. And silence plays a very interesting role. It puts a lot in this. And when we look at literature, we could say that silence could be a sign of resistance, right? The person does not want to speak. At the same time, most of the time when we see that silence is forced to be, right? It's because you are not given the floor, you are not given the right to talk, you're not allowed to talk. But can we insist on, she said, silence was broken only by the way the stealing thing, that it sliced through the stealing. Another passage, she said, our steps on the stairs were as injured and silent as our standings. In a family house, should be the space. The silence of waiting until Papa was that this is that. So we could have the silence of the victim. And when Papa gave us a scripture passage or a book by one of the early church fathers to read, the silence of evening music, the silence of driving to the church for benediction. Even our family time on Sunday was quiet. Just imagine to your own, making with all these observations in how silence is present in respect to the other. So coming into the story that this is deep in traumatic moments. Papa Eugene actually is a champion of human rights, a religious leader, a philanthropist who look for perfection. But human beings aspire to perfection. As Auntie Feoma always reminds Papa Eugene, we need to do what's good. It's very interesting when you look at the perpetrators. So the perpetrator of trauma is very good at manipulating people, who made it so deep that the survivors themselves get confused about their own feelings. They start questioning, maybe maybe I didn't put it this way, maybe so. I'm really glad that we have this conversation today, using because our society and the way that we see it, the role of women in the decision of women, we always question the victim and the survivor, and not the victim. It's a patriarchal society. What do we expect? So the victims always say, maybe they spoke too loud, maybe they too much to one, maybe they did not stand up straight, maybe they provoked him. Knowing that they don't like it, knowing that and their temper is the victim who is supposed to not provoke. Therefore, the perpetrator never gets blamed as they represent the perpetrator. So he uses, as I said, charity as a way of control and of violence. So trauma is defined as anything that results in experience that affect the person's capacity to cope. In African American literature, it's a lot of those because it's a personal and collective. Traumatic space for their form. Like if you look at the form that was supposed to be saved, Papa who's an island, as an ego, never questioned himself about his decision, about the routine that he forced his family to do. You have the physical abuse, you have the mental abuse, you have the emotional abuse. Even the miscarriage of our is caused by physical and mental abuse. So mothers and women, this is again from Camilla's perspective. She observed, right? She said, mothers and women keep the community. So it goes back to the role of being taking care of others, making sure that they are well, always trying to be at the service of the people. And that's what we call socialization. The teaching boys that, the kitchen is not the place where it's supposed to be. You've got this space, outside you can go and play ball, while the room is play. We are so much, we have a lot of expectations for younger, for women in general, and girls, and a lot of people like the. So, what is interesting is also how particular format is being introduced as the opposite. And actually, if you're exposing family with Jaja to a different way of life. People live in abusive environment. It's hard for them to see the difference. Even imagine that there's another possible environment that lives differently. But with the contact with activity, they're able to see people laugh, people talk. Children were given voices like they share their opinions. What? It's possible? And I think that exposure is done purposely by education, really show that we need to rethink the relationship between parents and children. We need to rethink socialization. We need to rethink how faith, the place that we give it to faith, versus the place that the person needs to explore and grow as a human being. So she gives exposure to JJ, Jaja, and Kakadi, traditional ways of life, right? With their grandfather. That is not Christian. It doesn't really descend to us. Right? And who introduces them to like a different way of being connected to spirits, understanding the stars, feeling, right? And all those is totally different. There's a change is like 15 minutes for this, 1 minute for this, 1 hour for this, and they expect it to follow interactive with Papa was there. But family uses feeling to use her voice, search for personality, over identity, who enjoy sounds and nature because they take it from place, right? So usually traveling, reading, anything that gets you out of your routine and your comfort zone is a beginning for you to see other things, understand the world in a different way. That doesn't mean that you deny what you do, but it gives you more perspectives. The forms of punishment is very well listed. It's like boiling water, making you stand on it, throwing things on you, beating you up until you get this edge. It's just like the level of violence as you read it. Like myself, I was really attached. I was moved by the extreme level of physical abuse. But at the same time, I was really emotional related to it and the lecture. So violence led to murder. Mama's weapon, getting of Papa is pretty close. And saying to everyone, that was the only weapon. 2, 3, but then what happened is that his own son was put in jail. So for the conclusion, I just talk about identity formation because who we are, what influences others, who decides to us. I don't know, it's fine. I'm almost done. So who decides to us? Who cares for us? All the questions that they come through the book as can be discussed in the way that she's saying. So JJ and Emily develop attitude to place their partner. They don't have another option. They observe the environment and adjust when needed. They develop their personality, their colors, their motivations, and their identity. And you can see how they behave in the house versus how they are. They will be positively impacted by anti-imperialist world, by the village way of living. However, what we see in the book, the place that needed to nurture love, empathy, simplicity, and support to children and to women is the same place where Papa is present as being the tyrant who takes away from them all their talent, because he wants to conclude to be shut off. But we are shut off the degree of violence and so on because we are asked not to speak. So speaking could be that in the subject, could be drawing, could be writing, but any sort of expression from his family is forbidden by this one. We argue that African, global African women's ability to tell the story to their background change, in a way of telling the story, a way of connecting the readers, is a way of saying that we need to be heard, we need to be read and understood, and we make stories more accessible for our communities and youth. Black women have always been storytellers to produce knowledge, but also creating spaces of circulation. And for Chimamanda Adichie, she has a TED talk, and then you always tell a story that I always get you. I love that because the way that she tells the story is just makes you connected to serious questions like stereotypes, the way that we see the world. And I think in publicly discuss that's exactly what she's part of. So she wants women to expect themselves, allowing them to communicate and connect with the community. And also Black and African community building. So Papa there represent a new beginning identity because they are about getting processing also traumatic moments. They have been so in the traumatic moments. Is that mark the end of it and the beginning. And the last sentence of the book tells us that it says the new women will come down. Last but not least, chapter now, the conflict with the second question.
Thank you so much, Raven. Professor so much for your microphone. I'm very far from it. Thank you for your training. Thank you for your coaching. Thank you for welcoming us in this Solidarity Development Studies Association. I'm very glad to be here with my colleagues, to my form, to co-panelists, Professor John Fine, my sister Parker. It's very difficult to just take the floor right after them. I think I'm just going to rest the dishes, right? I'm going to rest the dishes, knowing that they went to school and normal in a very, 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 very outstanding way. My opponent, thank you so much for joining us every time we organize this kind of collaboration. Thank you very much for organizing all that stuff. Thank you. So I think our topics are really different. Mine is dealing with the conflict between freedom and oppression in the novel. Chimamanda was in his book Hibiscus 2003, which is a very nice and revolutionized step against 9-year post-colonial centered in the character of Kabili Epidemic. His life is shaped by the father, as we know, children entirely Catholicism. Contrasted with the relationship discovers the founding performance household thing. That's the reason why I would like to showcase Kabili's silent revolution. I call it silent revolution because I like to understand different maybe from the personality of her sister, which is a personality that is very brother. It's not maybe that way that change things sometimes from the gentle women leadership that we can change issues. So silent revolutions showing the reality of freedom and expression in the novel. First of all, it is presenting domestic oppression, which children authoritarian rule as a father imposes on faith, which is also, clothing political rule tensions at the country level. It's colonial legacy. It's a colonial legacy that tends to remove people, silence them, break them down. Actually, yes, coloniality is also the negation of any right or hope for freedom of voice, discordant voice, can lead to really rise up, get people seeing very different things. So, huge Akiki, the wealthy businessmen. So when, as we say in French, people, parents don't speak well, it is you are everything you need as a wealth businessman, as a politically Catholic. This is how the society looks at you as a perfect human being. You tend to be really behaving as a small god. Very, 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 not modest to people humble. That's the reason why the human is operation in its most intimate form. It's reaching interpretation of things. This is one thing. Everybody can believe in the same thing, but our difference is how we interpret what we believe and how we tend to not be really tolerant related to people. This also manifests physical and emotional violence towards its own family. It enforces strict schedules, as you said, punishes sin, as you always, but punishes people sin is something really not acceptable of it because punish people being mistaken that you can be affected as a parent. But how you can punish people because but it's bring brutality as a for my colleague also mentioned a while ago, and which reflects exactly the colonial life was it will just give what you receive. If you receive an education with that breaks broke you down, if you receive education that undermines you, if you receive a kind of education that doesn't show respect to the other people, that's exactly what you put. That it went down the way of education. It's exactly how it was really brainwashed, how it was really getting in a very complex by society. And his form is a metaphor of prison. A prison, inside the prison cell, you know, there are some punishments that is not good. And that's the reason why there are so many symbolism in the novel, in the figurines, in the fusions leading probably a judge of human touch, which represent this fragile romantic morality. And the eventual destruction of foreshadows the collapse of this. Sorry. That operation I said is also a sort of evil of colonial legacy. Oppressing people inside society that just know independence, and the young nation trying to have its foundation rooted as a democratic young nation. But children self-loathing and also rejecting the tradition. It's also contrasting. I mean, the fact of the refusing the change of the society. The society is being changed, but actually they don't want, they refuse that change. New political authorities are doing their best not to see a new Nigeria actually. The new Nigeria that the society are willing to help. It's a kind of religion. But what is also interesting in that reality, freedom, and oppression, this is the woman's household and her ideas in that household. The ideas she nurtured, her lifestyle, actually, but also her garden, a garden of new ideas, representing actually the seeds of freedom. In that garden, you can see not just flowers, very nice flowers, very rare flowers as Christmas, but also it's a garden of new ideas. She represents the new Nigeria that we need to. That is the reason why you can see public formats form in Sugar becomes a sanctuary of intellectual and emotional freedom. Her personality is really important as a character. It's really important as one, showcasing the real intellectual, but also emotional revolution that the Nigerian society is looking at. That's the reason why I made up a dialogue versus dogma. Okay, if there were in various questions, love, debate, contrasting the huge and rigid silence. It's not just a silence because you don't want to you want to let people express themselves. It's a silence that is rigid. You're not open to over, you're not open to dialogue at all. If you do not have what you want people to do, you can impose people your ideas. You wrap yourself up. This is difficult. Some people cannot really deal with contradiction. It's the exact same we have with the future. Another symbol is purple hibiscus, a symbol of hybridity and resistance. The red flower grown by Ifeoma represents the possibility of beauty thriving harsh conditions. It mirrors Kamili's radical transformation. Kamili's represents also the young Nigerian society ready for the radical transformation. Another symbol is this political paradox. Actually, Ifeoma's activism is a kind of voice that is raised to criticize Nigeria's military regime. And she's also Olin's personal freedom to political liberation, echoing Nigerian struggles against dictatorship. I don't know colonialism for a long time, and after colonialism, fall into another regime which is very dictatorial regime. Through the voice of liberation of Kamili's awakening, we can also see a journey from silence to self-expression. encapsulates in the novel central conflict. That is the reason why you can have silence as survival. Some people can kill you because of your ideas. If you have a different idea, they break you down because of your different idea. It's negation, it's no longer contradiction. So in this novel, silence is a way for survival. Early in the novel, Kamle's started in fear of speech reflect internalized oppression. Her father's abuse convinces her she's too sinful to speak. Your voice is silence. Your voice is your voice pauses. You don't need to talk. Okay, it's a kind of subalternist viewpoint. You don't need to talk. And another thing is the catalyst for change, which is the exposure of the former world and her friendship with Father Hamadi, which awakens her desire for autonomy. Her first love, her crush, and her difference of Jaja mark a kind of radical but incremental rebellion. And political oppression and the nation's size also to be reflected on those characters I've just mentioned. And teaching parallels that Akin's family's dysfunction with Nigerian military relationship, the core in the family. There is core at the nation level, and there is also a core at the family level. The core in the military, in the family, Jaja's rebellion against Hujan mirrors the nation of people against General Abacha's regime, which is a metaphor of suffocation, just as Hujan controls his household through fear, and the government stifles dissent through violence and censorship. Some boys are really censored. You don't have to express yourself. So a great issue of liberty of freedom of expression. So I think I'm not going to hold the floor further, just to say that it's a novel that can really be reflected in modern day society. You students are watching maybe what's going on around our different universities. My apology also to say my condolences to you because yesterday there was students at yes, over the university. When I read that letter, I could not sleep yesterday. So many things came to my mind. How we treat people with different ideas in our society. Having a different idea is not a sin, actually. It's courage. And better exchange, talk, people, debate, and not just judging people and closing them forever into boxes. You have to give people second chance, actually. And maybe it's novel because he said that he wrote a novel. And maybe that novel would be a good added value for society. Look, society exorcism. Dear moderator, as I said, that's very difficult to take the floor after the brilliant professors. My role was the wash the dishes, and I think that we pass on broken some dishes, right?
definition of bright and shiny. You did a good job. And you also did a good job of keeping time, which leaves us a lot of time to reflect on your presentation, but also hopefully to the audience. And Dr. John White is being the coffee. He doesn't need coffee, I just pinch him. So, before I give the floor to the audience, thank you so much for these presentations. I wanted to ask them questions, follow-up questions, because we see a trope here in your presentations. All of you talked about values, all of you talked about immigration, all of you talked about the desire for freedom. You talked about the parallels between the bigger Nigerian nation, the nation state, and the minuscule Nigeria that we have in the Achike home. You also talked about the tribulation of Eugene, and I too have a question for each one of you. For Dr. Faye, you talked about violent extremism and talked about Papa's motivations. And then you said that religion is his motivation, which I don't disagree with. Because I think he's using religion as an excuse to abuse. He's using this really toxic masculinity. And I want to read him through the lens of Fanon's black skin whiteness, because he is performing this tyrant, this nice person outside, and then he's a tyrant at home. But what is happening here is he's really embracing whiteness. He's embracing everything that the colonialist is. And even if it was not religion, he would use as an excuse to really erase his Africanity. Because you can see that in his subconscious, he is an African. At home, he speaks Igbo. Outside, he speaks English. So could we talk about his motivation as anything other than religion, and look at it through the lenses of black skin, white mask? And you talked about tolerating traditional beliefs, which is it about? Do we tolerate our traditional beliefs, or do we embrace them? If we're wanting to do this enracinement into vertu, don't we have to own our traditions first? And you said, you called one of my favorite feminists, Audre Lorde, and I wanted to ask if your maxim, the master's tool cannot dismantle the master's house, can be used on the other side of it. Is there an exception here? Because it seems like in the case of the Achike family, Papa's violence was turned against him, and the tools that he used to oppress his family has been turned against him through the murder. But I also wanted to push the boundaries a little bit and ask if Dada's ownership of the murder is some kind of a paternalism, some kind of a masculine behavior to try to protect Mama. Does Mama need protection? Because she's the one who took the team poisoned it. And I found that as a very dishonorable.
No, we didn't say anything. No, we couldn't say anything. She was asking me whether I would be able to do the word to my office. I said, you are the two.
You have a new boss here, so. See, you even cut my train of thought. That was your question. To Dr. Mel,
Yes.
the dishwasher. Is Ifewo able to be the seat of Eugene when they work in the same context? Could we use gender as a lens to understand? And then you can give me the floor.
Okay, your first question. Thank you, Dr. It's a pleasure to share with you.
So, as I said, and I explained at the beginning, seeing union are what we call in Wolof sama ala. Someone who's pretending to be the person who is not. Because we say, to the voice of family, although Jaja and I spoke, uh, it's spoken with Mama at home. He did not like us to speak it in public. You didn't accept it. Yeah, you didn't accept his children to speak Igbo at home, but not in public. Why? We have to sound civilized in public. We be civilized in public. He told us we have to speak English. So you speak English, you civilized. You speak Igbo, you not civilized. So you see the reason why when even authorities decide to bring our language at school at elementary level, if you think about programs. Because if you can want to deprive you of your culture, the first thing to do is to cut the language. You lose your language, you lose your culture. But your language is the vehicle of your culture. The wisdom of your society. The moral teachings are taught through the culture. And even if you translate it into another language, even maybe's. I heard one of teacher who said, if you want to explain to people what we mean by the view ensemble, people that is make other design, they can move much again. So they don't understand what it means, the view ensemble. They can move much again. I know I'm saying yeah. So you see this practice of the behavior of union. And this is what I said, union is the result of the teachings of other benefits. You can even find the benefits. When he came, the first thing was to tell people that you are human beings. Your language is nothing compared to English. Your name should sound English. Even your accent should sound British. Give up your British, your Igbo accent. And you're going to be yourself. The change in accent to sound British, just as it did when you speak to other men. The question of identity is so I do agree that principle that you raised, that even using is not what is actually, and that's why I see it as some of that. So he's wealthy. Deep down himself, he refused to pretend the burial of his father, seeing him as a man of health who is going to health. But he could not resist, and he would sent money for the funeral. So, what people, il n'est pas allé jusqu'au bout de ses convictions, tellement de bien. Yeah, he refused to attend the funerals. That's you send the money. After that, you can do the funeral, but I will not attend your funerals. So this is part of the evolution, and when it's time to write the whole paper, I'm going to tell that perspective.
Before we go to Dr. Cal, he interrupted me and I didn't finish my question.
I have to leave. I already made
Well, go ahead. Do your presentation.
Very good.
It's still time. But then I've got, please remind me, I have to ask that question.
Madame, merci beaucoup parce que si je n'étais pas laissé pour poser une question, c'est très embarrassé par rapport à son devenu professeur et je vous dois tout le respect. Parce que c'est le même respect que j'avais pour vous. Quand vous étiez aussi étudiant, il y a beaucoup d'épisodes qu'on a vécu ensemble. Je crois qu'ils montrent que bon, il y avait une certaine chimie entre nous. Et j'apprécie énormément. Et pour le je suis particulièrement fier. Je suis particulièrement fier pour vous. C'est des officiers que vous formez sont des universitaires, mais le niveau élevé. Je ne sais pas quelle base, le niveau et la qualité de la langue. C'est le gagne-pain, c'est l'anglais. Et ça passe très bien. Et l'analyse est d'un certain niveau qui montre que bon, peut-être que c'est des professeurs de bonne loi. That being said, everything is related to colonial proposals. There is something else, which is very colonial without it necessarily being a physical colonization. Because what Christianism did to you, Islam did to many of us. We've never been Arab colonies. But we all bear Arab meaning. If you say Abdallah, all the anointed ladies, people forget that there were millions of Abdallah in the Arab world before the Prophet came in. So what is it that makes a name like Abdallah be more sacrosanct than the name Jeddah? That's a simple question. If all the names we have came exclusively with a prophet and not before, I would have accepted. But many of us are given the name of the prophet's father, and the prophet's father before the prophet was not person. Isn't it colonial? It's so colonial that there are many Europeans among them. When I was going to secondary school, je ne parle même pas du symbole de l'école primaire. But we had some half-baked, citizen, young ladies and young boys who would say, oh, je parle pas l'Olof. You would laugh because they would not even pronounce the word Wolof. They would say Olaf, O-L-O-F. You parle pas l'Olof. I still remember it was here, Lycée Saint-Dourdan, right here at Ecuador, it was by school. I can see young girls, one of them particularly called Sad, she can't follow us. And black as being another illustration. Did you hear all the talk, all the hullabaloo around the name of our president? But before getting to that, and I'm going to stop there, one time over the radio, and I'm going to explain a little because he's a and they were talking about religious manifestation in us, and they said, well, yeah, but the drumming will be only with a Kabbalah. Not with a Sabbath. And we said, some instructed the police officers, if ever anybody dances to the sound of the Sabbath, you're going to flog them or take them. But if they have a lot, you can allow them to dance. Ladies and gentlemen, for Tabala was created during the time of a prophet or long before. It was a musical instrument with corrupt, blissfully drunk and dancing around. And that Tabala was sanctified by the prophet, therefore we got to use it. But our own terms, no. What is this? Once and for all your people. Exactly. Basiru, I'm feeling with this. Basiru, Jomai, fine. So, what is his name? Basir. We did not say Basir, we said Basiru. Whether it is Basir in the Arab, that's not our problem. His father named him Basiru. Keep Basiru. And what is fantastic among the Serem is that whether they are Muslim or Christian, they will always add a second name, which is a Serem name. Leopold, Sedan, Senor. Basiru, Jomai, Jamar, Fine. And these two have got a meaning. Jomai, you are full of human dignity. John. Zahar, you will never be daunted. You will always stand upright like a great man.
What about you? What is your
Yeah, I'm going to answer it. You heard her. She said, toxic male chauvinism. You heard it. I'm going to say, I'm going to say toxic moral balance.
Thank you. We know the party so that we can open up the audience. So the question I had for Dr. was about the master's tool being used to dismantle the master's house. But I wanted to know is, do you think that Aditya is saying that this model of character, like Eugene, is bound to die? And here I am reminded of Okonkwo in Things Fall Apart. So that's the amendment that I was doing.
All right. So it's time to talk after the so I'll try to answer the question. Thank you. I think when we think about the masters who cannot spend, firstly, what comes to mind for me is that to join young how he was speaking about discussing about languages. I think this movie workshop will force in Thailand. So we have the language that are novel and the languages that are so and the huge debate because a lot of we had basically two groups, right? One group was thinking that we could still use the colonial language, French, English, Portuguese, after independence, right about the other group said, we cannot do that. Because if we use it, then we are reinforcing the hierarchy of language. So for me, thinking about the real working like this dismantling, right? The master's house, we need to do our own truth. That's how we do it. So because if you use the same tool, that tool was made for a specific purpose. The purpose was erasure of African culture, erasure of identity, erasure of even the humanity, right? And then, we fight for freedom, and then after getting freedom, we still keep the same tool, maybe for a different reason, right? So if you don't pay much attention on how we use it, we may perpetuate somehow in a different ways what the master was trying to achieve. And so if you think about The second part of your question, which is how, like, before getting there, maybe think also about how, for example, Chimamanda is writing, right? This book, we are able to read it and understand it because it's different, right? But do we identify, do we really see that beyond just the tool of conversation, communication, and sharing? And if you think back about how, I mean, so far uses one of language in her own writing, like for example. We have passages of in word that say that Sila, I mean, the origin is Arabic, but again, qualified, right? And we have some things like furo, the use of like colonnades, just words in word within the text. You are French and you're reading it, you are in France. There will be a lot more material to stop to figure out what it means. If you want to follow the word. Or you will admit that you're missing something about it. And when I interviewed her, she said that that's an act of resistance, of bringing her identity into it. Because for now, French is the language that she can use to write her stuff. And she needs to write. Because we went from orality to writing, to production. So now, as we are figuring out other ways of producing that's more accessible to our communities, we can use what we have for now, but start to use it, you know, that in order to erase or to change or even decolonize, you know, the patriarchy. Think about the extent it takes a lot of reflection. Than just saying, oh, it's patriarchy, we all are suffering, that's it, right? So when we're thinking about socialization, how do we raise our children? Getting to the second part of the question, why would Jaja feel that he needs to protect his mother? Whose question is Dr.
But your question to you was is this not this character who in the end dies? And is that from the violence that we perpetrate? Is I think you're saying that this kind of character cannot survive. They have to die for advance to the right. And I am reminded of the important things about this.
Exactly. And I read the last sentence of the book, like saying that the new rain will fall or something like that, right? So he needs to die for a new life, right? And if you think even about that, you know, metaphor or like the serpent and how we, in our culture, we think about life and death, right? So basically, death is not the end. Death is the beginning of something, right? So I feel like she is giving the opportunity to Mama. Mama used his tool. His tool, her tool was the tea. She makes tea all the time for Papa, right? So he's like, I'm gonna use this tool, making that, right? And then add poison in. I see that as a form of resistance of using what she had as a tool, because even if after his death, he told everybody that I killed him. I put myself poison on the tea. Everybody didn't believe it. They were just like, oh, you want to protect your kid. You want to protect the guy. So I've seen that also as a resistance for Mama, but Papa needing to die because we give life, a new life for the Thank you. Thank you.
Yes.
Yes.
No, I didn't forget.
You want to
Really polite for you.
you have the floor. You can watch one dishes.
That's really, let's watch the final dish. It's okay.
Yeah.
All right. Oh, yes. I think the two personalities are being rooted in form is in contrast to our normal. And at the same time, we can question why that happened, knowing that we were raised in the same group, the same family. There's a saying goes, birds of a feather flock together. This is the person, but the human beings. We human beings, we can born in the same parents, raised under the same roof, and being receptive to different discourse. I mean, region in the novel were more receptive to the colonialist discourse than before. Before, maybe closeness to her father, the traditionalist character in the novel, maybe could be seen as the differentiation element related to Hugo, who were really receptive to whatever he was told within the church or at school. When I say church, it's from the colonialist standpoint, from the religious standpoint. Same thing also, like what he was told in life, being as the Western civilization is a civilization, and ours is just a secondary civilization, and we need to get rid of our language, our culture, and talk with other peoples. This is exactly what I can say about the two personalities. It's been noticed also in our societies that we be also the guardians of our culture. It can be seen in our interesting, can be seen in also other countries that they represent the real warriors, real guardians of our culture. So let's not name, and it's also viewed as something, yeah, we talk about gender. It could be really proud of that. Our feminism is the feminism of the culture first. We're proud of our traditional clothes. Look at Senegalese people, the way they fashion their ears, their heads, the way they dress in colors, the way yes, they represent uh, the real symbols, but also guardians of that culture. This is exactly what I see in the personality and character of Flora. And I think that that's the reason why she's really different from her brother, even though we share the same.
Thank you. Questions from the audience? What was the follow-up between you that let's follow. So let's take maybe three. Here. So 1, 2, and then we pull them out. 3, and then we'll.
You giving me the floor. Yeah. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for the panel. For those who don't know me, I am a colonel in the army. The Air Force. I've been trained in the United States, a lot of literature, black literature, on through. But I'm not going to talk about my own city. I just want to ask some questions to the panel. From all your I don't have three that I just took from your presentation. Existence of it is what you are talking about. It's a way of telling story, telling a story that happened because it's true. Is there any personal reason? Say, well, that personal reason, story. But story can be a lesson for the students. But here, what you say, I think that it might be in that person. My last question is about the language. Just tell me what this recently in my senior year in Texas, I have a friend, a Japanese friend, and we switched countries for the whole grade. And I had to give a lesson on Chatham and give a lesson on Senegal. But what I learned from him about the language, she's telling me that the best student in Black language place, what are Senegalese? Question was, why Senegalese are the best students? And he was telling me that he studied that French because each Senegalese, we learn a language to speak it. When we say Senghor was teaching French to the French, that was a pride for us. So for the Japanese, they never learned English to speak. And I say, why? He said, we learn English, we learn a language, any language. Because inside that language, there is something we need to pull for us to go forward. That's the difference between Senegalese and Japanese. And this is why, how do you think that, about that? That's what I have. So, thank you very much. I don't want to.
Thank you very much to all the panelists for revisiting this book that I read as a teenager and I loved it. Thank you for this opportunity. I had a question in particular for Dr. Klein, but it follows from a question raised by Professor Gay about to what extent is this kind of this novel offering a kind of critique of religion as a source of violence and a source of kind of colonial erasure, or to what extent is this about the abuse of religion for those oppressive purposes? And it seems to me there's a tension there in the novel of this point. I mean, to some extent, this theme of colonial erasure is there. It's there in all of Chimamanda novels, and I guess it's worth reporting that actually he was born with the name Amanda. So Chimamanda is an attempt to kind of re-Igboize the European name that was given, she being the prefix in Igbo, which means God. So a lot of people named that she as the prefix. And that's certainly a theme there. But I guess there's a couple of additional questions that I feel we need to ask about this sort of the Catholicism presented to us in this book. Firstly, to what extent is this a kind of allegorical rather than historical account of Catholicism as it appears in 1970s Nigeria, and in the sort of the oppressive form in Eugene and Father Benedict that we see? Because after all, from the mid-60s onwards, from the Vatican Council II, Catholicism as it appeared in all over the world, including West Africa especially, there was a great movement towards vernacularization, towards converting the mass into local language, including people. A great openness among Catholic thinkers at the time to kind of different local, including African spiritualities. And I myself have attended a number of Igbo weddings in London, sort of absolutely Catholic weddings, where there's absolutely no embarrassment on mentioning the gods and the libation and so on. And actually, I've turned around and seen fellow attendees of the wedding, Yoruba attendees, Protestant attendees, seeming rather shocked and scandalized by the freeness with which these Catholic people were referring to the traditional gods. So of course, there may well have been sort of oppressive older people trained in the colonial era still around by the 1970s when this novel is set. But in terms of the kind of institutional official line, both then and now, I don't think the sort of anti-indigenous discourse presented in this book is an accurate representation of the sort of the official line of the Catholic Church in West Africa. So that suggests to me more of a kind of allegorical rather than historical sense of what's going on. And that leads me to ask, to what extent is this sort of extremist Catholicism a way of describing something else? Is it sort of a more general critique of a hypocritical male patriarchal leading class, which is something that comes up in other Beacon novels? The figure of the hypocritical male leader appears in Yellow Sun and so on. So yeah, that was my question really. And only to underline the point, after all, one of the inspiring figures of the Vatican II Council was Azali John, who was a great colleague of Senghor. So this ethos of enraciné mais ouvert was exactly the same ethos that was there in this sort of moment in Catholic theology. So yeah, I guess we just need to be a bit careful distinguishing the allegorical and the historical. But apart from that, thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Also, I'd like to congratulate all the panelists on their previous presentations, but also to thank Ali Badr from the Web Library for giving this opportunity and this platform for us to be able to discuss all the issues. All right, so, and also thanks for really bringing up, the different lenses through which we can read the book. And thanks for that, my sister, especially for bringing up the intersectional dimension of violence in this book, which is extremely important. And in the book, now which is, fraught with violence. So you kept talking about also silence. And I was really fascinated with how recurrent the theme of silence is. So my question is, especially to Parker and John, is silence here a sign of violence or a token of peace? Or to Parker, a manifestation of trauma? Because someone I've talked about the student from UGB from the suicide, right? And he wrote in his letter that his silence was misread as a sign of wickedness. While he was, from deep down, he was suffering. And because people were bullying him and calling him names, right? Some people we are silent that we are not communicating, right? So, what extent the symbolism of silence is important in this book and who which that can be read. Thank you very much once again.
Thank you. Any other questions? So I guess we'll take the last one. That way we can discuss with participants.
Hello. Thank you for your presentation. As you mentioned, I want to ask this question. If there are any messages that you didn't read the topic and what?
Any passages? Yeah. Okay. So thank you, and I think that this is going to be the last term. So then this is the time that we can say thank you. But je pense que beaucoup de générations du département d'anglais connaissent Aline Badara, qui m'a passionné. Souvent, on peut le reprocher de mes chances, mais il reste toujours la même personne qui est prête à écouter. Donc, merci à Aline Badara de cette marque qui ne change pas. Et merci aussi à tout le personnel du marque. She's our sister. On a pour les gars avec nos séminaires. Alors, on se connaît. We know each other. Voilà. Et merci aussi au colonel H. Je vous dis que votre présence, ça c'est une bonne chose. Okay. You see, l'essentiel is the personal things. It is what Whitman said. I assume myself and celebrate myself, and what the assuming should assume. Whatever account of good belongs to me belongs to you. But I see myself out in the eyes. So if you see the stories in the book, so the story of religion is family in the story of me, of the first Christian in West Africa. Because when the missionaries came, they touched the Bible and also the opportunities. You accept our faith. You reject our faith, you decide. And this way of doing even consistency in Senegal, we got before later basic right. You are a member of the 4 councils, you privileges. Your children can go to school, and when they finish even their studies, they can be elected as deputy principal. So this is also the stories and the essentialism. I do accept what you made other comparison between Chinese and Senegalese program. Japanese, most Senegalese people are storytellers. They love to tell stories. But to take what they need in account. So this is interpretations. So if you accept the point of views. So I come back to you with your 2 remarks and contribution on Oriental and Catholicism. But you see, in many African writers, the perception of the new religions and how it was practiced, it is what I say reliable with the Bible and the evidence. We have in the village where you are going to be one of our inhabitants. If you see the names of his children, the first was Emil and Paul, when he was a Christian. And his name was Latin. And they changed the Latin to Gerard. It is after that I looked for Gerard because they could not pronounce it. They were saying Sarah. Instead of Gerard, they said Sarah. When he came to our house with my uncles, when they drank wine, and they were happy. Yeah, Sam. You see? And after I know that it was not Sarah, it was Jenna. You see? But when that opportunity is disappeared, he gave up the Christian faith and became a Muslim. And he changed the name was Mamadou. And the children born during his Muslim faith, you see now, Fatou and Bisal is Usman. And after the Protestant came again with authorities, and he became Gerard again. With the names of his children, you see now, Leo and Jean. Now, from Latin, his traditional name, to Gerard, Serral, from Gerard to Mamadou to Gerard again. Moving depending on the opportunities brought by the church. So this is what we see in many. So we are what we are today, not because we choose to be what we are, but it is because of the history. From our so silence to come to the question of the eye. I come back. You see, I preserve this in one of the other because I do not like. I would say I have line notes. But if you have no proof that, I know. Yeah. But I'm glad, yes, for the other 10 companies. This is not a lot of accents. We are trying to accent. We cannot use a lot of accent. We use an accent. Don't qualify me.
It looks so violent.
Yeah, I can't talk to that. The notion of silence in the book is very tiny. And thank you very much for your question.
So thank you for the question. I think what I would add is to answer some of the questions. Just getting back to the question of language and thinking that it's time to unlearn hierarchy of languages. For me to explain myself, it's like trying to explain that a language comes with a culture that they're living into, right? Sometimes one of words, it becomes so many cultural contexts, right? That needs to be. But beyond that, it's and I think right now we're thinking about Senegal with relationship with France, with the French language, with Haitian. We're having debates about the movie concept. It's one of the issues. There are a lot of debates around that. To me, I think as long as we are not trapped into choosing a language because that's superior to the other, I think we will be able to really strategically to use the language. I talked about earlier the fact that we are going to discuss because it was forced into the Nigerian community. And after the independence, they forced to do it. Senegal is the same. French language communicating officially with French, right? But that should not put us in the box where we can then I speak French, then I'm speaking French, then I speak French, then right? But it can be unlearned and thinking the language as a tool and people, while of course learning our own, right? So the question also of silence is really interesting. To me, in the book, it comes a lot, right? I've read some of the passages where we are talking about this silence. And I think silence can be an act of resistance. And it reminds me of one of the essays that Philip wrote, which was in Paris, about Sister Elisa. Sister Elisa is a Black woman from Martinique who's in the middle class in Martinique. That's why she didn't want to go to study. But then during the day, she's part of the community. People invite her. Why? Because she's only Black woman. Look at her children. Yeah, the way that she dresses up. But nobody invited her into the house. Nobody. At night, she's alone in the cold of France. And the way that she represented France was that, this is like a paradise, like a place where I have to go. She realized that she's being frightened because everything that people ask her to do is just dress up and show up during the day. They don't invite her into their private homes, private conversations. She's not able to really talk intellectual have debates because she's not a human being. She's not civilized. She's irreverent. So silence, I think, for Colin Naga to tell the story of Elisa is an act of resistance to silence. So she's giving voice to this woman find herself in a very racist place. If you think about Smart Segment film, where we have Joanna, La Noire. Joanna doesn't speak. She doesn't, she speaks in her mind. The people watching can hear her speak. But all she says to Madame, the white boss of her, is, oui, monsieur, oui, madame, yes, monsieur, yes, madam. That's it. But the person watching is able to read and share Diana, Joanna's feelings as a person. You know what I mean? She basically, she's like, whenever they will shape up, she's like, that's not true. He's lying. But he's not, she's not speaking, but she's not like getting it outside. And I think that's a very interesting choice. And even at the end, how she chose to commit suicide, she has power. You know what I mean? She turned the fact of that, the fact of or the situation where she's powerless to power because she chose to go, to leave. Because physically she cannot go and fight. So silence can definitely be also a representation of trauma. Sometimes when you are shocked, some people just can't even like process it, think about it, and talk about it. Right? So sometimes you are trapped into that silence that you cannot share or at least people cannot understand. And to get back to the story that happened yesterday with the student that committed suicide, he could not be heard. Like he would express himself and share his ideas, but everybody is not able to get to his own feelings to support him. So definitely the last question about the passenger that I did not answer that. Well, so yeah, of course. Some of the passages where we just show that, perfection is this, like basically, perfection is on Sundays go to church and be able to read the passages of the book by heart and be able to follow all the routine that Papa gives. Yeah. I disagree with perfection because I believe that, for the children to grow up, they be making mistakes, for the dad to be in the position where he's right now, he did some mistakes, and human beings make mistakes. That is how they grow. So I feel like the idea of perfection being, something that we have to get to is illusional. I feel like it's something that brings violence in its way, especially if you think about it. So I'm going to start with that.
Yes. Very useful. To just say something related to silence. I think silence is very expressive in terms of what people that we and what they don't interact with. It's allergic actually when you see some people closing themselves into silence. Most of the time, it reflects weakness sometimes. Weakness. It reflects most of the time frustrations that it's through in your life. Through verbal violence sometimes. Society, Senegalese society, verbal violence is more painful than physical violence may see. Sometimes you can receive a wound that can be in your mind forever. And sleep with and wake up with. It's a burden. When you receive some words and you receive that from your loved ones, those who were supposed to support you and care, receive that word, those words from them. This is really difficult. Science also has also showing the level of violence received from, as I said, from your loved ones, particularly usually this maybe what I'm not really agree with also is how Papa educating doesn't mean you should punish. No, it's not educating. If you keep on punishing, it shows also another weakness that you cannot convince people, cannot educate by example. If you can educate by example, you don't need to impose people your rules, your lifestyle. People will just influence because they love what you do, because you're a good human. But if you're weak and not really perfect, you tend to impose other people's your way of life, and maybe this is really what poverty is looking at. Maybe not reflecting what the father should be. Thank you so much, moderator.
Have you any other questions? Okay, we'll take only these two, and we want questions and then short answers because we have to wrap up in the next 10 minutes. You go first, please.
So something that I'm hearing, like feeling throughout this conversation is time related. And I just want to ask, like, how do you think we can construct our neighborhood intentional time? And then what is the role of time in the novel in order to live our social colonial mindset? And like, moreover, is there a way we can order to do it, understand the time, and then by extensions ourselves and our enemies?
On a similar note, I remember you guys saying at the beginning this is a post-colonial novel, but I heard very much in your description of the novel how coloniality is still aggressively present. So I wanted to ask you guys maybe a yes or no question of like, can we ever reach, or are we currently in, is there such thing as a post-colonial? Yeah, that's my question.
Yes. Time. Wow. Sometimes spiritual it is something that stop. Time is our first resources. Time is our first resources. And time is unstoppable. And even so, we will do our best to just mark our time with our actions, look back and keep some time. And one day, and we are the symbolism of time. So our age, our life experience, life expectation. But fluidity is like fluidity for me is that very counter that clock that keeps on beating and knowing that every part in the so it's also something that should get us to really reflect on our actions, on our into the time we have to really mark on people. Talking about 2005, this is our world, our life. We be moving as a means to becoming the world, the time we keep. My inspiration, maybe that's the mission. That's what it's right. Yes, thank you so much.
Thank you for the question. I think for me, thinking about time, especially we see that there's a reach. So Sundays they know what to do. Like they have the 20 minutes to do something, 1 hour. So it's really Papa and Jim trying to control the time and making it, align with the transformation that we want to see. Because remember that we want to go toward perfection. So, so if you think about that, time and fluidity, you can also bring it back to our culture and the way that we see time. In the capitalist society, they say time is money. In Senegal, with our, Teranga and hospitality, we say time is people. Just look at the way that we treat. Like if you do it the normal ways, let's say the same is just figure out how you doing, how is the neighbor, how is your mom, how is your aunt, everybody, because we care about you. Even if we haven't heard a good one. So I think the relativity of time, I don't know if I can say relativity, but you know what I mean? Like the fluidity of time is very interesting. How we see time. When we are sick at night time, the night's gonna feel forever. It's like the day to happen for us to go to see the doctor to feel better. When we are in our blessed moments, we don't even feel the time gone. It goes so fast in lives. And I think if you think about also like how our identities are formed, we have the older generations, our ancestors, they have their time, they build something. To me, what I'm seeing is our time and what needs to happen. Is that for us to contribute, because time is going. How much do we bring onto the table before we leave? Because they're gonna happen anyways, right? So the relativity of time is that if you tie it to identity, you can see that Emily was, adolescent in the book. Go even through law, go through, you know what I mean, like the different phases of life as the book progresses. And then you can also see the end of the tyrannic moment to a military coup. Is it the best one? Is it something new? But is it the best in place? What is the I think those are really interesting moments and make a big question. For the book to be post-colonial, to try to answer your question, I think it's very interesting that we always like go into colonization because everything that we do since 2025, but you think about it, you go back to colonization. Think about land, you go back to colonization. We have our rice and meat eating children. If you question the rice itself, you're gonna get back to colonization. You think about the vegetables that we're eating, the way that it's grown, the land that's been used, the people growing it, everything brings us back to these times of control that it is our identity, it is who we are. And then when we get our independence, we try to reclaim ourselves and getting back. And I think even in 2003, Chimamanda is bringing us some moments of slavery, trauma, and the fact that when everything is erased from your life, who do you become? Who speaks for you, right? So we can think about that. That's why we always get back to colonization and slavery, because it's a deep trauma, a deep consequence, many consequences that it has on our lives and how we see ourselves.
Okay. So, I just wanted to jump on the notion of time, the perception of time. You see, Papa Newman, his perception of time. Everything is scheduled in the house at each time. You know what happened. And this is what we can call the Western perception of time. Yes. Based on capitalism. As she said, time is money. So, as she said, here in Africa, you move from diligent household to anti more household, you see the difference. The kids, why did they have the desire to go to anti more household? Because they spend their time with our parents, enjoying themselves, going to stadiums, chatting, discussing. So this is what you call the African perception of time. If you say silent game, many times to show that I consider the power. So if we come to the notion of colonial and post-colonial, complete the situation in different instances, what happened in the US in 2008 with the election of Barack Obama. Many scholars hold that America was rich of post-racial society. But it was a notion of time. Because post-racial, with the election of Obama, racial issues they hold that would end. But unfortunately, you have to say, all the families died. So, the Harvest Act here, and we need to leave the balance between colonialism and colonialism. This is not perspective that we need to consider.
So again, thank you to our panelists, thank you to the organizers of the Palaver Tree. I hope you have one in line pretty soon. And to the people online, thank you. We didn't get to read their questions. We forgot the presence of the people online. But it was a pleasure to be your moderator, and thank you for hosting us. And we'll see you next time. Thank you.
Vraiment, merci beaucoup. Donc, pour la prochaine session, donc, je parle avec vous pour la société. Je vous salue et là-bas. C'est
City and cinema. So,
okay, can you tell us where we can find the book for the next collab?
It's available online. I don't know about shipping after.
Do you have copies?
I have some, yeah, and I have a copy.
So
As a library, has a copy.
Yeah, we have one second. Okay.
Can I speak something?
yes.
You allow me.
You allow.
You've got to say loud and clear, I allow you.
Only if you tell us you said it.
No, really, to thank you all, and to insist this place is yours. You see, around you, you can do wonderful things. This presentation will pass as one of the best for 2025. And you did it. So I really appreciate it. While insisting on my pride not being as the director of a West African Literature Center, my pride of having been faculty in the Department of English. Then it was sitting right there, focused to it. No matter what you say, I will be proud to say if I go. Abdullah who landed the Fulbright scholarship and is going for research, and it is very competitive. And from the student, Banana, the same thing. And then people sitting here and who are challenging me. Yeah. I would be tempted to add this. That would be that you raised a very interesting question. What is time? Yeah. What is time? But I tell you, you are with your significant other, your sweetheart. We give you a day, 12 hours. How does it sound? Or how does it feel compared to for 12 hours? We're going to take this iron rod, put it in the fire, and put it on your skin for 12 hours. Can you compare with time wise? Can you compare with and then time until here, You know, Jesus Christ came at a certain point, going to be united with God and to be judged. And every single day, you get closer to that. Huh? And the other time, whatever goes is bound to come back. Spring, summer, winter, and fall, forever and a days. A circle, a circle, a circle. All this is time. Of course, you have a time of our time as perceived from USB, CPT, and Thank you very much.
It's fine. We're on African time.